Russell won yesterday's race. Max Verstappen finished runner-up, and by country mile, I would say that it was Red Bull's best performance of the season. Wouldn't you agree, Mustafa? This is Formula One
Yeah, I
game.
say it was very good. They also had a very good performance in Monaco, but uh, Verstappen's car crashed. Remember, I think he had a crash at the start or something. But it was a very good race for Verstappen. Clearly, he had the best race pace. Maybe Antonelli was close to him, but the race pace of the Red Bull was fantastic. And even in qualifying, he was looking fantastic before he crashed. But what we're going to talk about this weekend is the paradox because Verstappen has been complaining about the drivability of that car. Its unpredictability, especially at high speeds. The back, it snaps and everything else like that, but it's really fast. And we want to ask the question, why is it so fast now? But at the same time, Verstappen feels like he can't drive it. You know, usually Verstappen will be like, oh, I can, he likes a fronty car that's nervous and everything. But this car seems to be wild and untemperate. And he still managed to come Q2 and could have won the race, especially if he had been allowed to do our qualifying yesterday. So we want to look at what it is about him driving and what it is about this track that helped and what it is about the upgrades that make the car faster, but make it more predictable. So the first thing we want to say is that the car dropped a lot of weight. They took off the last 6 to 12. It was 12 kgs overweight, then 6 kgs overweight. They finally trimmed off all of the weight to its initial settings. And what I want to argue is that by trimming off all of that weight, it brings back a problem that the Red Bull had, which was one of the reasons they added the weight to it, which is that the production of energy, the electrical currents were unpredictable and were causing unpredictable torque. And that car still has a problem with its electrical systems in which the torque delivery is from the electrical systems is unpredictable. And that is what's causing the undrivability of the car. You'll see a snap here and there, especially on high speed. When you get to lower speeds, you don't have that same torque issue, but on high speeds, and it might have been part of the reason why he had a problem qualifying where the rear snap. But I think part of that qualifying problem was that the wing didn't come out. But in general, the car is more unpredictable now. It's more twitchy because they've taken off the weight. All of that weight that the car had was in response to the problems of the unpredictable electrical surges. So now that they've taken that weight off, they're prey to those surges again. We'll start off with that. And that makes the car very undrivable. But the thing is that Max Verstappen has gotten so good now that he's able to anticipate and alter his driving style to work around that unpredictability. What are your thoughts about that, Afalabi?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, what a paradox it was. They reduced the weight to make the car faster, but in doing so, they have removed some of the structural strength required to control the power of the car. So basically, aerodynamically, the car is fast, is efficient, is stable, but mechanically, it's nervous, it's flexible, and it's unpredictable, and one that doesn't give the driver confidence. Basically, in theory, it's a rocket ship, but one that Max has to drive almost on the knife edge. And even though they improved the performance, peak performance, while other things were kept constant, you could see that at some point he couldn't predict what the car was doing. I mean, 6 to 7 kilogram reduction when you have a very narrow operating window. When the conditions are perfect, the car can behave well.
Yeah,
When
he
the
even said
conditions are not stable,
he said after the race, he said, "I think I need to go to a Buddhist monastery. You have no idea how much stress I was under." Because it means he doesn't know what the car is going to do. Now let's talk about some other issues. So during the race, Verstappen was dominating in in corner 1, 2, and 3 in sector 1. Those are tight one-off corners. They're like very tight, lefters and righters, It's just like you go in the corner, then you go into a straight. Very tight. And the reason he was doing so well on that is, number one, those are low-speed corners, so you're not having to worry about the unpredictability on high-speed corners. But the real reason is that the Red Bull car this year is actually the opposite of what it was last year. It has anti-squat. So it has a very stable rear suspension and it has the anti-squat, which keeps it stable going on corners, very slow corners. So that's where they were getting a lot of time because this is a real limited track and they were getting more grip and traction than any other team because of their anti-squat, which is why you saw that he was so much faster than everybody else. Also, his race pace is very fast compared to everybody else's because Red Bull, along with Audi, probably have the best ERS, the best system for endurance over a long race, for mapping out a whole race. That on top of the fact that their rear tires weren't giving out was one of the reasons they were driving so well. But the unpredictability comes with the high-speed corners. But during a race, when you have race trim, you're not going all out like you're doing in qualifying. So you weren't able to see the problem of the unpredictability. You'll see that problem with Max during qualifying. So this car was perfectly set up for a race because he doesn't have to drive all out for one lap. He can drive at 90% of the whole pace for one lap. You have that great rear stability and traction and everything else, which helps you. So that's why the race pace was so fantastic during that compared to Mercedes. Mercedes is more of a front limited car and does better on tracks where the front traction and front grip is more important. So that's the advantage that Red Bull had. So later on in this show, we're going to look at the rest of the tracks this season and see which type of tracks conform to the way this Red Bull drives and what type of tracks will hurt it. The Red Bull car right now has a lot of downforce added from its upgrades. It has a lot of downforce, which will be great when it's on low speed corners. But the problem is that they don't have anti-dive in the front. Anti-dive in the front helps you from stopping your downforce, making the car just lurch all the way down to the ground on curbs. So it doesn't have anti-dive. So it's going to have a problem on tracks which are front limited and on tracks which have curbs, which will affect the front suspension. That type of thing. So all of that was hidden today in Austria because Austria is not a curby track. It doesn't have a lot of curbs and it's not bumpy. But when Red Bull gets on bumpy tracks, its stiffness even in the rear with its anti-dive is going to hurt it. I mean, with its anti-squat is going to hurt it. And its lack of compliance in the front is going to hurt it on front limited tracks. And part of the problem is that now that it has more downforce on the high speed parts of Austria, especially during qualifying, the car was unstable because it didn't have anti-dive in the front to balance off the problem it didn't have anti-dive to balance off the problem of having too much downforce, especially when you're getting to the apex. So what are your thoughts? So what I'm basically saying is that this car has a specific setup which is not helping it for high speed tracks and helping it for curbs. So the question as to whether Max can win the championship this year or can come second is going to depend on how many of the tracks are going to fit like Austria for this real limited setup, which has the anti-squat. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Yeah, I noticed also, like what you said, it was the downforce pushed the car steadily into the track when the corners were high speed. But then again, the aerodynamic platform remained relatively stable. And if you look at on the curbs, when it was accelerating hard, the loads seem to be, changing somehow.
But let me add something. So it has a lot of downforce now, right? And it doesn't have anti-dive. So the fact that it doesn't have anti-dive causes a problem on high-speed corners because on high-speed corners, a lot of downforce causes some instability. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Now the anti-dive will become a problem, or anti-squat becomes, because anti-dive and anti-squat are rigid systems. They become a problem when you get on curbs. But this track didn't have a lot of curbs, so it wasn't a problem for Verstappen. But the problem was so much downforce on high-speed corners leads to unpredictability, especially with torque and everything. Sorry, go ahead.
And the fact that their window is very narrow, it doesn't give them allowance to tweak too much, especially for a car that is unpredictable. You tweak something, you get advantages in some areas, but when it comes to unpredictability, it's a problem for the driver.
So we want to look at the last 14 races. So here are the types of tracks that suit Red Bull's setup. On these circuits, the track surfaces are smooth enough to keep the lightweight chassis, because they've lost a lot of weight, from vibrating or flexing, because the surfaces are smooth, allowing their excellent anti-squat and top-end ERS mapping to maximize straight line speed. So out of the Rex 14, there are 6 races like that. Belgium, Spa, Monza, Italy. These are all very flat, straight tracks. Austin, Texas, Coda, Mexico City, Las Vegas. But now the problem is that 6 races will suit a Red Bull. You can see maybe Max win half of those races. Now the 8 races which don't suit him, these circuits are front limited, heavily undulating, and demand violent curb strikes. That's not what this car's made. The thinned out chassis will flex over the bumps, sending unpredictable torque. Silverstone. So he's not going to do well at Silverstone. You heard that from us, guys. Hungaroring, Zandvoort, Madrid, Baku. Singapore. These are high rigidity. They have a lot of rigidity. They have a lot of bumps and things like that and curves.
Oh,
Interlagos, Yas Marina. So he should do well in 6 out of the 14 races and struggle in those. So this is why Red Bull has not yet created the car that can go. That's a like Mercedes. Mercedes may not be the best on every track, but on every track it does at least well enough to keep them in the hunt for winning the championships. Same thing with McLaren. McLaren, if they can get their reliability together, they're a car that can do well over a lot of tracks. Ferrari only does well on low speed cornering tracks. You get my point. So the key is to build a car that doesn't have to be great on any one track, but has to be very good on all tracks, even if it's not the best. So Red Bull still needs to work on their ride quality of their chassis so that under any surfaces, under any track, they can remain stable. Red Bull has a stability problem. They don't have a speed problem. They have a stability problem, which is going to hold Verstappen from winning the championship this year or from winning a lot of races and maybe coming second. What are your last thoughts, Afolabi?
I think I was very, very impressed with Red Bull this weekend. Haja made P6 from P8, Verstappen P2 from P5. And I think it's a step in the right direction. Basically, if you look at it, it's by far their best weekend. But they're still a step behind Mercedes in a full race weekend. But I think the gap is closing. And like you rightly mentioned, you've reeled out those tracks. If you can maintain podium on those tracks where their car is typically strong at, I think he has a good shout at top 1 or 2 or 3 on the end of the season.
Yeah. And he has to ask himself this question. Does he want to hope that Red Bull can fix this problem next year? Or maybe go to another team, to a Mercedes or a McLaren.
Exit clause becomes active during the summer break.
If I were him, I'll give Red Bull 1 more year, and if they're not working out, go to McLaren. Because I hear that what's his name just wants to leave McLaren. Piastri just wants to leave because he feels he's being disrespected there, and he's being treated as a number 2.
I share his sentiments.
So you can see a switch. Really. You can see it's not that Verstappen will be stealing his seat. He'll be like, I hate this place. Let me go to Red Bull where I can be number 1. And Verstappen will say, "Let me."
Constantly for Lando Norris last season.
And Verstappen will go to McLaren where he can have a balanced car. And if Verstappen gets a balanced car, you're going to see things you never thought were possible in motorsport.
Absolutely.
All right, take us out of Falabi.
Good show. A very interesting Formula One show. We've been discussing Red Bull's performance and the central paradox between the upgrades and what actually happened and how difficult it was for Max Verstappen to make P2 yesterday. And for Mustafa and myself, we'll be back again with Formula One stories.
Nice one. Nice one. I called this guy. I told Segodi, I said, you're not serious. So he said that he couldn't do the show yesterday because there was no electricity. Story, you went to go and drink with your boys. These guys went to drink thinking they were winning.
He had an emotional meltdown.
Don't mind them. He didn't even talk on the website. Every time, no, I'm very mature. Story. You think it was easy for us when Nigeria didn't qualify? It was easy. Easy. But those South Africans are stupid. Why would you go out to drink to celebrate? Sit down in your house and watch the game, man.
Yes, exactly.
Because the next morning you'll be having hangover. You won't even. You understand what I'm saying?
Of course, I understand what you're saying.
There's no point.
Maybe Nigeria qualifies for the semi-final or something.
Yeah, but I want boys sitting down close to their house taking pepper soup.
Of course,
and beer.
Of course.
You understand?
Of course.
There's a difference. You can watch the game with I1 boys, and you're able, but to go out and drink, they're just looking for an excuse to drink, and then they'll get in fights. No man. Did you see that thing I said? If I go and deport Ocon now, Ocon's dad is Nigerian.
Yeah.
Don't mind him.
Yeah.
But they just want. He said, "Oh, he's our nephew." Oh, what about?
And he's playing central defense for them.
Don't mind them. And he plays in the U.S. If not for guys like him, that the score would have been 5-0 yesterday. All right, we'll talk.
All right, Mustafa.
Nice one, though. Yeah, we did. We're finished for today, so we'll do something tomorrow. Okay.
All right.